Hi friends, welcome to this second session on AWS, that is Amazon Web Services. In the first session, we basically discussed on the basic details of AWS and cloud computing platform, what AWS is, what a cloud computing platform does, and some services which are offered by cloud computing platform. And then in the end, we also created one AWS account. So now, first of all, we will be logging into our AWS account. So here is the page. You can just search for AWS console, and here's the link to log into the AWS console. You can see sign into the console. The link is present here. So herein you will be entering the details which you gave during the creation of your AWS account. You will be giving your email or mobile number here, and the password, whatever password you set for creation of that AWS account, that password you will be entering in here, and after then you can sign in. The account which you are creating, if you're the first time user, you will get 12 months free access, free tier access is there, and these are the services which are included in your free tier. You have Amazon EC2, that is Amazon machine images or to creating virtual servers, and you have Amazon S3, that is for storage, and Amazon DynamoDB is a database, a NoSQL DB which Amazon offers. So some of the features are there in free tier, so you can take advantage of this within the 12 months of creation of your account. So now we'll go ahead and log into this. You can just fill in your email ID and password and hit enter. And whatever email ID you have given and whatever your password is, after that you can just hit enter. Okay, so when you hit enter, this Amazon Web Services console will pop up. You can see we have this this session is for compute, that is for EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. With this you can create, with EC2 you can create virtual servers. For storage we have this S3 main simple storage service. For database we have this relation database service, that RDS and DynamoDB, and all the other things are there. So this is our console, and here on the right hand side, if you see, this is the region. So now what are regions? So we have regions and availability zones. So now we'll be discussing on these. So when we said we create virtual servers, so those virtual servers are given to us through a data center. So there is actually a piece of hardware which is there, or the data centers which are established by Amazon in various areas. On those data centers, the virtual servers are created and assigned to us. So there are various data centers for Amazon. Let's say this is data center for US. This is the data center for Singapore. Let's say this is for Australia. This is for Japan. So these are various regions. So regions are basically places where Amazon has set up its data centers. So let's say this is region R1, and this region R1 is in US, and this is region R2. Let's say this is in Singapore. This is region R3, which is in Australia, and this is region R4, which is in Japan. So there are various regions where Amazon has set up its data centers. And inside regions we basically have availability zones. So let's say this is one region. Let's say this is this region is somewhere in Singapore, and inside this we will be having availability zones. So this is, let's say, availability zone 1, this is availability zone 2, and this is availability zone 3, and these availability zones are connected to each other. This is A1, this is A2, and this is A3. So these availability zones are connected to each other, and this is a region. Let's say this region is in Australia, Japan, or anywhere. And these availability zones have in turn many racks. Internally it has many racks. These have and inside one availability zones we have, this is basically a one data center which is there in a region. So we have basically 3 availability zones. This has racks. Basically this availability zone is these are the data centers inside a region, and we have 3 data centers here, and all 3 data centers are connected to each other. So while these availability zones are connected to each other, please note that there is no direct connection between region 1 and region 2. Let's say this is a region in Australia, let's say this is region 2 and this is region 1. So there is no direct connection between regions, while the availability zones which are present in region, they are connected to each other, and also they are very far apart from each other. So let's say this is Australia region. These availability zones are basically 5 to 15 miles apart from each other. So these are also apart from each other, and we have 3 availability zone because let's say if something happens like natural calamity or something, if one availability zone goes down, then still we have 2 other availability zones present, so which will serve the request. So these are for high availability. So yesterday, if you remember, we discussed that AWS is built for handling the high failure. So even if one availability zone goes down, we still have two other availability zones, or two other data centers are also there in a single region which can serve your request. So this is one of the biggest advantage of Amazon. So let's say you have a website and basically you have a load balancer. So let's say this is your load balancer, and you have a website, and your website has servers allocated in availability zone and availability zone 1 and 2 both. So if some user makes a request, and if availability zone 1 is down, it will automatically send the request to availability zone 2 and your request will be served. So this is the advantage of high availability. So in the load balancer used in Amazon is basically an ELB, that is elastic load balancer. So it basically knows what servers are up and running and what servers are down. So accordingly, this elastic load balancer will serve your request. So if availability zone 1 is down, it will automatically send the request to availability zone 2 where you have the servers. So these are regions and availability zones. So again, to illustrate, regions are basically you can say places where Amazon has placed its data centers, and regions basically have availability zones. So and availability zones inside a region are connected to each other, but there is no direct connection between a region to another region. And in case one availability zone goes down, we still have all the other availability zones to serve your request. So these are regions and availability zones. So launching a virtual server. So I'll be just taking it out. The availability zones and region we discussed, so we have those actual physical data centers there. So whenever we create a server, the server is created on those actual physical servers, and then it is allocated to us virtually. Let's say this is our actual physical server, okay, and this physical server is also known as host. Okay, so physical server is also called as host, and the virtual servers which are created on this physical server, they are known as guests, means also known as guests. So these are also known as guests. So these are virtual servers. Let's say this is virtual server 1, this is virtual server 2, and this is virtual server 3. So the responsibility of isolating these virtual servers is given to a hypervisor. So we have a hypervisor. So now this is the actual physical server, on one of the availability zones or regions. This is the actual physical server which is known as host, and these are the guests or the virtual servers which are created on actual physical server, and the responsibility of isolating these virtual servers is given to a hypervisor. So hypervisor has a responsibility. It basically schedules the requests. I'm sorry for this writing. So it basically schedules the requests. So these are the actual virtual servers which are created on hypervisor. On physical server, and the responsibility of isolating is given to a physical server. So whenever we create a virtual server, it is created on actual physical server and given to us. And whenever you don't need it, you can simply shut it down, and this virtual server will, and the resources will be given back to AWS, and you will not incur any cost.